What's up everyone, welcome back to a new video on the Alien Algo channel. Today we will be going over the markets again. My excuse for it being a little bit late. We had a pretty decent setup at that New York Open. Like usual, we zoom in on this. You see on that New York Open, we had a tiny move towards the downside where we made that local top. Then we got some more FUD, broke down below, giving us a quick wick. I pointed out in the Discord that I wanted to see this level being broken and retested to see continuation, which pretty much happened perfectly. So with all that having said, let's get a little bit deeper into it. So I just wanted to point that out real quick. So now let's get further into it. So what we were looking at previously in yesterday's video, we're looking at this micro range where we wanted to either reclaim this to play it back towards the upside or find acceptance back below it to play it towards the downside. And here we really didn't see any sort of buying, where we just saw kind of aggressive selling until this point right there. And what can we see again? You guys should know the pattern by now. Right there, we had that beautiful bottom formation where we later saw that move back towards the upside, where we rejected initially on that range low. We broke above it, and then we've gotten that FUD towards the downside, which we now have made a big V-shaped recovery from it. When I talk about aggressive move towards the downside, like this little part, this is passive, meaning we don't see an aggressive move back up, where this usually tends to continue further down like it did, and here you see a bit of a compression happening where we form that bottom. Here you see the big difference. You see a tiny move down, a tiny move up, a massive move down, meaning very aggressive selling. This is what I talk about in my video. So here you see a perfect example of how you want to see it move aggressively towards the downside and aggressively back up. This is what we call a reversion. Here, this is not your reversion. This is not explosive enough. And here we just have compression with a bottom formation. So with that having said, I wanted to front run it a little bit, but I was a little busy during the day, so I did not have time to make it during that New York Open. So with that having said, what levels should we now be looking at? For BTC, it is quite clear that the thing I pointed out yesterday is that I was really not that bothered when it closed below this for one candle. I said the moment you can be concerned is when you close 2 candles below it, which I said this point where we pretty much saw a massive move towards the downside, breaking these lows, but yet on that next move we engulfed it, which we currently seem to be doing it in 2.0. So with this logic, what can we be looking at? This, of course, on those lower time frames, this range now is irrelevant. So I will fully remove this range to clean up the chart. This is not useful anymore. Same goes for this little part. Those major levels right now are quite clear where we should be reclaiming this. If we don't, we should see some compression in between these 2 levels. If we find acceptance back below this, and then specifically this part, I do think we should trade towards the downside, only in the case of breaking below this, creating a lower high. This does not seem like the likely case. I do think we just either compress and later just break up further. So in the case of breaking up, what level should we be looking at? For that, we will be going onto the daily. So I hope you guys should understand the logic of the staircase by now, where this was your previous staircase. So with the staircases, what do we look at? Of course, your previous lows and your previous highs. This point I find the most interesting, because this, when you move it a little bit more to the left, you pretty much see that these previous highs are correlating with these previous lows. The line is not fully straight, so here you see it a little bit. I will remove this line. This is just to illustrate how these highs also were your previous lows. So the moment we break up from this level, if we do of course, then we, in my opinion, should see our first resistance right around here, where you have your previous highs and those previous lows. So with that having said, should be looking for something like this, and perhaps here we can see a more move towards the upside, but I do expect to see some first resistance around this area. That was not quite as I wanted. Annoying little shitters. 1 second. Like right around here. I'll just do it with the eclipse to make it a little bit more clear. So I'm looking at this current level if we break above this. So for now, of course, when you look at it on a 4 hour, what do you again see? See this point here as well, acted as a major resistance, where later this, of course, were your higher time frame resistance levels. So we want to see it break above this, or we see it compress in between these levels before we break up. So now that we have had the Bitcoin, I wanted to get a little bit more in depth right there, because there are a couple levels to look at, but I simply think we will be moving up. But first we should expect a little bit more chop, because this was just straight up, and what do you know? Everything that goes up goes down. So when we see this, we should see something like this, right in between, just to create that bullish formation, where we perhaps do something like this to create a higher low. So let's get onto ETH now that we have had BTC. For ETH, that was quite shit. I think I charted this on the perpetual chart. Yes, right, perfect. So let's start at the daily. You see, this was your range low, like stated in the video. This was your micro level, right? I'm saying that wrong, my excuse. This was your macro range, where if we wanted to long this, what again did we want to see? Let's go on to the 30 minutes to illustrate it a little bit better. Like I stated with that BTC chart right at the beginning, we had two types of ways to reclaim a level, where we sweep it and we get back up aggressively. So something like this, and you get back up aggressively, right? This is not what we got here. The second option is where you break below, or how people like to call it, you sweep those levels, and instead of aggressively reclaiming, instead do something like stated in this one right here. This has been sitting on the chart for way too long, and I said if we really make this move, it's really bearish on a lower time frame, where we should trade right into here. If you don't believe me, go watch that previous video where I pointed out this level. I think it was 2 videos ago from the top of my head. Yeah, maybe even more. I see I have drawn this on the 15th, so that should be 7 days ago. So now that we have looked at this, what did we state on that previous video? That we wanted to see a reclaim of this level. Because when we look at this on a 4 hour, let's zoom in a little, you see that we've had this wick here, which also was your initial point where you moved up, done that retest to create that range. So this is your point of impulse, meaning this is where you started that run up. So here, that wick we had, like stated here, when you get below a wick, you want it to be aggressive and get back up right quickly, which this, of course, was drawn a while back, which here we did not get the sweep, and this is the scenario that really played out. So in yesterday's video, I pointed out that on a 1 hour time frame, we wanted to see it get above this and hold, where we create that sweep and reclaim, meaning the sweep and the reclaim, like this. And what are we currently getting? We got that sweep, we are currently getting that reclaim. So for ETH, it's a little bit more clear. We quite literally would like to hold this blue line. So this blue line, it is sitting right at, and keep this in mind, it's a Bitcoin ETH perpetual chart on Binance. So this level is right around 270. So this is what we want to hold on those lower time frames. For us to see further continuation, what do we want to see break? These previous highs, where you already see that we had one rejection on that New York Open, and we currently are trying to break that right again. And what can we see? These are equal highs. So one high, two high. So this will act as a crucial resistance, in my opinion, on a lower time frame, where there, just like BTC, is a high likely chance that we just first chop a little, maybe even sweep this wick and continue back up. So this will be your crucial point. We can get below it for a short while, but then we want to see it get back up right after. Or if we just break up, which I do think we should, if the S&P likes to do it, where we go up, hold it, and continue back up, perhaps even. I'm not going to say perhaps, because I do think that if we break up, we should see at least this value area low again. Like, I'm pretty sure I've drawn this, yes, right into that value area low. So with those having had, let's get a little bit into alts, because these have been showing a bit of strength on the lower time frames. I added a lot more alts on the Discord in VP, meaning Vector Prime's Discord, of course. So right here, we had this quite great move, virtual, also a clear bottom formation, and yes, it might get repetitive, but it just keeps repeating itself. Alright, yes, again, you have your wick, you sweep it, you reclaim it, you retest it, and what do you get? A 1, 2, and 3. So with those having had, let's get on to the next one, which is hype. Like I said, I did not expect them to take this wick out, which of course could have happened, but I expected them to take at least these wicks out. It barely front run this last wick, but this wick we also we did not sweep it. But you already see how we tagged this level. Now let's zoom in on a 30 minutes, because this is what I like to do. I point out the higher time frame levels, and then I want to see a lower time frame reversal pattern forming, where right again we had this, and here what do you have? Equal lows. So here again you see this level perfectly being held, where it tagged that supply zone, which came right from here, which, if you guys find it repetitive, also was your initial point of impulse, where this is where you chopped around a bit and then started that move up to create that range. You tagged inside it again, and you just flew straight past. So these all look kind of good. TIA, I am still really not that bullish on TIA anymore, because it's just been underperforming. Although also broke right below like almost all altcoins, but this also is seeing some strong reversal. where here instead we had a free drive, meaning 1, 2, and 3, which a free drive pattern should look something like this. Right here, where these are equal, meaning if you would get, like, I don't know the English word, if you would just get a straight line, it should be like this. So let's say these free drives would have been like this. It's not a free drive anymore. So, like stated, it really needs to follow it perfectly, so it is one straight line getting all of those levels. So the next one will be Pendle. Pendle, yeah, looks really good as well, where you had your 1 and 2 and create a higher low right after. Now, where do we get that retest? No, it's getting repetitive, guys, but this is just how price works. Right here, the level that you swept, the higher low you created, you grind up, you get back into it, and you fly away. Well, this is why I always say, yeah, news is sort of important, but the chart will most likely tell you before the news will. Just like this, did I expect them to attack? No, but this was quite literally in the charts when you see it break below and it starts to form a rollover pattern where you later got that flow down. So I normally start with these, but I just had to ignore them. So I don't think most people will be watching this part of the video. If you did, drop a comment below with the word stock, so I know that you have seen this part of the video, where you, right again, are still chopping in between these levels, where I do think we should just fly through it if we manage to hold this level and just continue to chop a little, where we slowly grind up. That's a thing, within the summer you usually have some sort of chop, so where we should just do something like this, and then right around August, September, you just go up again. So this of course can also happen in the opposite way, where we just chop and instead of going up, we go down instead. And then with down, I really mean down. So you of course have to look at both sides. The Nasdaq still looking quite good, still chopping. Dow Jones, very similar, still around that key resistance, not being able to find acceptance above it, where we form some sort of pattern above it. So the stocks look good, crypto looks good. We just have a couple levels to reclaim, where we want to see it clear this, and for ETH we want to see it get right above this. So this video was a bit longer because there was a lot to explain. So with all that having said, guys, have a nice day and keep trading. Goodbye.